So I wanted to take a minute and share some of the secrets, tips, and tricks that I have learned about using the epoxy clay over the last several years. There's a lot of different options for you on the market, and I think it's important to understand what epoxy clay is and be able to understand what each of the different products can do so that you can find the right one for your project. So let's start. I'm going to kind of break it down in a couple of different ways, but let's just start by going over the epoxy clays that are on the market right now. Now, this first one, Cerulean, is a clay that's made by Swarovski. And because it's made by Swarovski, it tends to be quite a bit more expensive than most clays. The one and only thing that I like about Swarovski is that they do have some amazing colors. This is the baby pink. They've got this malachite, kind of looks almost like teal. And they even have some that are iridescent, like the shining lilac. So that's their one selling point. Because for me, there's a lot more downsides to the Swarovski brand. The first thing I find is that it's incredibly stiff and difficult to work with. Some clays, some of the other epoxy clays can feel stiff to work with at first, but once you warm them up, they soften up and they get much easier. The Cerulean never does. It's just hard and difficult to work with, and it's got one of the biggest downsides, in my opinion, which is it smells awful. There's two different kinds of ways that epoxy clay can smell bad. One is because it has a really highly chemical smell. I find that's really common in the ones that come from China. Or if it uses some type of earthen clay, it can get a really musty and sometimes rancid smell. And in my opinion, Swarovski clay smells like both. It's got the chemical and the musty smell. So that's just my opinion. So take it for what it's worth. Another option on the market is MagicSculpt. Now, I love MagicSculpt. It's one of the first epoxy clays actually that I ever worked with because of my experience in special effects makeup in Hollywood. So this is one of the more common clays used in special effects makeup. The things that I love about it is that it's not just good for special effects makeup, but particularly for bead making. It has great depth of color. It's got a really smooth finish as compared to some of the other clays. And it's got less stickiness than some of the other clays, so it's easier to work with. The only downside I would say is it does lack in the color options. There's only like 3 colors to choose from, 4 maybe, and it's quite expensive for how much you get. So that's kind of the downside. The next you have is Aves Epoxy Sculpt. It's very popular for bead making, and it's got a lot of things right. I would say that right now it's probably one of the leading products for bead making. The things that I like about it is it's got a lot of elasticity. So you've got the flexibility to work and do the more intricate work. It doesn't show some of the fine details as well as some of the other epoxy clays, but it's not too sticky. It's just flexible enough. They've got a good range of colors, although to get some of the colors you want, you do have to mix. But still, as far as the other clays are concerned, it's got more color options than most of them. And the price is actually pretty darn good. My one complaint is that I'm not sure which clay they use, but it does have a gray tint to it, so it might be bentonite. But it's got that gray tint to the part B, which means it can't get quite as vibrant of colors as some of the other clays. So some of your other options then, so those are kind of the major US ones. The major manufacturer in China, they have lots and lots of colors. And because their part B is very bright white, you can get vibrant colors, but it is really, really impractical for bead making purposes. It's way too sticky. I mean, honestly, we've tried making beads out of this before and my staff hates it. So the one thing that I do love about it is it's got that elasticity, which is something you want in your clays. What I think we're coming up against is two different types of clay. Some of these are more earthen based, which is, you know, your kaolin or your bentonite. And then you've got the plasticized clay, polymer clays, which is a PVC powder mixed with a plasticizer. So that gives you that really elastic clay. So what I've done in creating our product was I tried to mesh the best of both worlds. So our part B actually contains both an earthen clay and a plasticized polymer clay. So it gives us a lighter gray color than many of the other clays, which means we can achieve brighter, more vibrant colors. It also means that it's got just the right amount of stickiness without being too sticky, and it's also got the elasticity that you want. So these are kind of what I feel like takes the best of everything and makes one very useful product. Now I'd like to talk about one other clay that is available to you. It's something that I've used in a pinch, and also when we were first starting out and there wasn't as much availability of epoxy clays at the time. This is actually Epoxy Putty that you can get from the hardware store. I think I got this one at Home Depot. It's only comes in the one color, which is the dark gray. Now sometimes you can add things into it to try and color it yourself, but since it's a dark gray, it is hard to color. And it only gives you about 2 or 3 minutes working time, so you have to work very fast. It hardens very fast. What it's good for is a few things. If you need to make a product very quickly and have it harden same day, this is your guy. In fact, this is what we built the Gunmetal Glam bead mix off of, because we were like, okay, what can we add to gray that makes it pretty? So we added white and pink and slapped glitter on it, and there you go. I wouldn't recommend it for use all the time, but it's a good option in a pinch, and it may be a good introduction or someplace for you to try out a little bit of clay without spending a fortune on getting started. Just see if you even like it. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the fun things that we have coming down the pipeline. So just like this clay can harden super fast, I've actually been working on a formula of epoxy clay that will harden super fast for you. It gives you 10 minutes of working time, so a lot more time for you to complete your designs, but it also will harden fast enough. Again, you can get those orders out same day if you need to. You don't have to wait for it to harden overnight. Additionally, we have some fun ones. So I'm working on this one. I don't know if you can see or not. This is a metallicized clay. It's got the gold particles embedded in it, and it naturally comes to a high gloss shine. It doesn't need to be glazed. So far we've got it in gold and silver, and we're working on a few other options, so that's something to keep an eye out on. We're also working on a high gloss clay. This clay is the black version of the clay that I've formulated that will harden to a high shine without having to be glazed. It's so nice to save you that step after you've made your bead. The next one we're working on is a highly pigmented iridescent clay. Again, this is high pigmentation. When you work with it, if you don't wear gloves, it turns your fingers colors. Hey guys, shut up, I'm doing a video.
Sorry. Wait, Logan, right now?
Yes.
Shut up! I love my kids. All right, so come back and see my little secret. Okay, so iridescent clay, that's what's coming next. And we are also working, I don't have it perfect yet, but we are working on a epoxy paint. I've been working on the viscosity of it to get it thin enough that we can use it to paint on beads and give us a very smooth, high gloss painted look that will last. Because everything that, my bead making, everything that we've built this on has been about creating products that will last. We want to create heirlooms, and so we don't want paint that's just gonna rub off. And so epoxy paint is a good solution for that problem. So yeah, I think I just explained everything that you never wanted to know about epoxy clay. Oh, no, I did. I wanted to talk about the recipes. Okay, so I have had people ask me specifically for my epoxy clay recipe. And although I will not give out my... No! Nope. You guys have my undivided attention.